And I'm having my first cup of tea of the day. I really can't see the chat, but I am figured out how to get it up on my TV, how to cast it to my TV with my old phone that has no SIM card. So I'll be able to watch the chat today. Alrighty. Now I've got an idea. I have to make some more pieces like this for my quilt. I'm eventually going to sit down and just do a whole bunch of them. But I want to show you how to do a block, right? And my thing just came up. So there's my chat. Let me just get this. I just want to pause the video on the old phone so I can, hi, Seashell, how's it going? So I need, now I want to save as much of this as I can because little scraps like this, go a long way, especially in little projects like this. So there is there, and I'm folding this in 3, like this, you see? Okay, none. And I'm going to see if I can't. Let's get you guys a little bit higher. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Nobody tells you how often you say that when you get to be an adult. Gracie, Daddy's giving you a bath this weekend. And if he's not doing it, I am. Okay, let's see how we can do this. So you guys can see what I'm doing here. Is that okay? Can you guys see okay? Hey, Karen. Good morning. It's 2 in the afternoon, darling. Hey, Joe, Karen. Happy Friday. I will see you all at, well, patrons anyway, at Freaky Friday. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. Hey, Barefoot. Hey, Barefoot. Oh, okay. So, in here, I have all of these. They're all pre-cut. But I have one that was the original. Now, where are they? There they are. These are the originals that I made these from. And I have to keep these because if I keep making copies of copies, they're going to change size. So let's just put the pin in here for now, and we'll put it back when we're done. Well, no, we won't. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this. It's folded in 6. Like so. And that's not the, that's not what I want, actually. These aren't what I want. Don't be me. I have one piece in here that I have been using to cut. There we go. Here's what we do. So I take this. Wonder if I could do it this way. All right. If I fold this just a little bit better. I want the edge nice and straight because then I can get a better cut. I mean, you can fold it any which way you want and cut whatever way you want. But the truth is, folks, if, haste makes waste. And I never understood what that meant until I started quilting. There, that's better. Now we can put Buddy like this. You see? I gotta get my pins a little closer here. I'll get a couple in there. Stick them in the arm of my chair. I have been sticking needles and sewing needles in the arm, using the arm of my chair for a pin cushion forever. Hey, Dave, how's Arizona? $5 for 2 pounds. I hope you stocked up. Okay, so see, this is nice and flat, and I'm just going to take my pins like this. And like this. That one's a bit long. I'll put him over here. And you just pin it to the fabric. And you can go ahead and get a rotary cutter or whatever if you want. Not those scissors, these scissors. These are my no name never scissors. Hey, Lori, how's it going? Lena K. So now, to make things just a little bit easier, I am going to waste a little bit of fabric by cutting this off. And then I'm just going to not cut the original fabric, but you got to be really close. I don't even need to cut the point off, but I do cut the point off just because it can be a pain in the butt down the road. This is one of my... Now, we had rain, torrential rain, we had a lot of rain yesterday. And we are under a thunderstorm warning right now. And then it's supposed to rain the rest of the weekend. Now, you see, I've cut that exactly the same. I'm going to take this little guy off and set him aside because I'm going to want to cut more fabric after. Stick him there with a pin. And now I'm going to show you how I make the star block. Okay? Just fed your cat and ate lunch. I'm just having my first cup of tea of the day. Excuse me. I got dressed and I went into the garden and I pulled about 30% weeds. Now, like I said, I just do the best I can, but I knew I couldn't leave them. I couldn't leave them any longer because it's supposed to rain for another 3 days. And if that happens, see, I've already got one going here that I just cut, but I want to show you how it goes from the start. So we take our one petal, it's like a petal, and you make it right sides work facing. It doesn't matter with this part. But I went out and I pulled, it still doesn't look like I've done anything. Now, if your block, let's see if I can make this work just a little bit better for you there. If your block doesn't exactly fit, it's a little smaller because these I cut a little bigger. Just make sure this edge is correct and that this green piece is centered as much as possible. Okay. I'm going to put a pin over here. And I got to get me a needle and thread. I know, I keep saying it's as boring as watching paint dry, but it's soothing. And I have taken nothing out for supper. So we're probably going to have, what did we have last night? We had sausage patties cooked with rice and cabbage and tomatoes. Kind of like lazy man cabbage rolls. All right, let's get. It's another reason I want to quilt while I still can. My hands aren't going to be this good forever, and I've got quilts to finish. Okay, so we make sure he's straight. Let's see, is this better for you guys? There we go. And then I just start. Now remember, each one of these should have 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, roughly. Ouch. I don't measure, I just eyeball it, but then I've been at this for a while. And then we do another stitch. Oh, come on. I hate this crappy thread. Now, if you have to use polyester thread like I do, please don't make tight stitches. You can make close stitches, but don't pull them tight, because somebody said polyester is basically plastic. And it can cut the cotton fibers. Whoever told me this, thank you very much. And not all of my, I don't like this needle. I don't like this needle. And although not all of my fabric is cotton, a lot of it is. And when the fabric gets tugged and it's in the washing machine and stuff like that, if your stitches are too tight, they can wear against the cotton, wear the cotton fibers out and tear, because plastic is sharp, isn't it? So that's what happens over time. So don't make your I'm going to do myself a favor right now and change this needle. I don't like it. Where did it go? That's a danger of this chair. All right. Whoops. Where are you? Let me see. Oh, this is a better needle. That's a better needle. It's thinner. Not all needles are created equal. Using gold tip sharps are the best if you can get them, but they're also pretty delicate and can break. It depends on the needle. But I like a really slender needle because it slides through the fabric much easier and my hands don't have to work as hard. All right, so now we're going to put the next petal on. Hey, Valentina, how's it going? Hi, Donna. Yeah, it was raining this morning and all yesterday. Today, we've got severe thunderstorm watches. Now, this is where this one needs to go, right? So we're going to start by pinning this. Make sure you're level with your yellow. And I'm going to pin this because I can feel it. 1/4 inch with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to pin it. Oh, I'm good. Right where the thread started. So we're at the junction right there. That's our junction. Helen, hi. Oh, I'm glad. Hey, Freaky Geek, how are you? So we're going to go our 1/4 inch in from our corner. See, the corner is right about there. We're going to eyeball that. And again, I always make too much length in the thread because I hate rethreading the needle. I'm going to have to do that twice because I pulled the thread through. Get out of the way, you. Pull you down. Whoops. There we go. I had to go through that a couple of times because it was a single thickness of thread there. teeny tiny little stitches. Some people like jigsaw puzzles. I like fabric ones that I design myself and put together with sewing thread. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle though, isn't it? This is real old school quilting, folks. I don't know if it's the fabric or the needle, but I'm having a heck of a time getting the needle through. And then we double stitch right where we can feel the ridge. What, Gracie? It's the fridge. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, folks, do not attempt this. There's where it meets, right? Whoops, don't. We're going to give it another stitch right here. And then we're going to turn our petal, right? We're going to turn it and bring the edge, the corner of the petal up to the other corner of the petal. And put in the pin where the last stitch is going to fall. If it's raining tomorrow, I'm probably going to be taking down the rest of my plant table, which I have not done yet. I got about 30% of the weeds in the garden. I weeded the celery. I weeded the cabbages. I weeded some more parsnips and a little bit of carrots and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The beans are starting to climb the pole. Well, I just saw a couple of little tendrils put out, so that's very exciting. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my marigold seeds and go out and plant some from seed around the cabbages. And then, you know, let them come up as they go. Piecing a snowball. What's a snowball quilt? Well, hexagons are pretty crazy. But I'm working on the grandmother's flower garden hexagon quilt right now. Well, right now I'm working on this one, which is the Lone Star or Texas Star or whatever. Someone corrected me and said, no, it's Texas Star is 5 points, not 6. That's more like a la 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 la. I'm sorry, but it's the name in the book, okay? So here we go. And now, again, we're going to take another piece and we're just going to repeat. Pretty sure I actually have a video of me doing a block like this, sitting at the kitchen table, but see? Pin it right where you want your sewing to end. It can be pretty overwhelming if you look at it and go, I'll never be able to do that. Like, I'm really grateful that I actually taught myself to quilt before I bought my first quilt book. Because if I'd have bought the book first, I would have quit before I started. And I remember Aunt Jane showing me quilt blocks she had started and given to me. My sister has a quilt that was started by Aunt Jane and finished by me. And I said, how do you, because I was using templates and then drawing the template on the fabric, leaving a seam allowance in pen, and then sewing. And she looked at me and I said, how do you do that without sewing lines? And she said, that's what the lines on your sewing machine are for, Beth. And I could have slapped myself in the forehead, honestly. And she laughed. She thought it was so funny because, yeah, we can be taught, you know, things, we need to be taught these things, right? God rest your soul, Aunt Jane. I know you're tripping the light fantastic with my mom and all your sisters and brothers who are all now gone. I tried reading a book and following it, but I'm better with visual directions like this here video. Well, thank you, Freaky Geek. I'm going to have to look up a snowball quilt. Is that one of the ones where you put the fabric around and then, I don't know. I'll have to look. I'll have to research it because I really don't have the time to start any more quilts except for Edwards. And I have to remember to save one block from Edwards that has his grandmother guest's fabric in it. His bio grandmother's. Wait a minute. Arthur's bio grandmother made him a quilt when he was 1, and I've reclaimed some of the fabric from it because it was destroyed. And I'm making a quilt for Bubba with it. But I'm going to have to save a few blocks from that quilt for if and when his little baby brother or sister comes along. No, Melanie is not pregnant. I'm just saying that because, you know, I saw 2 children. So in my cards, you know what I mean? I saw 2. So I got to make sure that, you know, they both get a quilt with their grandmother guest fabric in it. See? Thank you, Mary. I'm hardly beautiful, but I also had a sewing class in school that by line by the foot is one of the first lessons. We took some sewing in, we had in grades 7 and 8. The boys went to shop, the girls went to home ec. We got on a bus twice a month. Line up with the yellow. We got on a bus twice a month, rode the 15 miles to the high school and did. And I'm really grateful actually because my mother had taught me how to knit, but my mother was left-handed, right? And so she taught me left-handed, and then I completely forgot how to knit. So we did work how to thread a sewing machine, how to sew basic fabric, but we also made mitts, knitted mittens on 2 needles. And once I had the knit, the purl, and guys, I do have a playlist on knitting. Okay? I'm pretty sure I do. Someone asked me to put all my, you know, different things. I had them in playlists by year, but not necessarily by subject. Turn. And then I'm weird, okay? I'm not weird. This is how I work. Oh, well, thank you, Mary. Honesty is the only way I know how to live because the truth is, it keeps me sober, folks. I'm 27 years sober, sober alcoholic. I'm a 27-year sober alcoholic, okay? And nobody's any better than anybody else. That's what we learn. I come from a long line of distinguished and not so distinguished drunks. From famous people to park bench rummies in my family, in my family. And so when it comes to honesty, it's a slippery slope when you start to lie. And it's, as an alcoholic, I lied a lot. I lied about my finances. I lied about, how we were doing. I lied about my fear. I lied about everything. But the moment I started speaking the truth, then I had a much more peaceful life. So truth is very important because lies are a slippery slope that ends you up in quicksand that you cannot get yourself out of, right? So honesty is always the best policy. Hey, Jane! I should be ironing all these blocks before I sew them together, but I think I'll do that. But we'll see. So when it came to knitting, you know, I was re-instructed in public school. And then I wanted to knit socks because remember me telling you that this star quilt was a personal challenge. Hang on, I got to get this just right. There we go. This star quilt, oh, don't drop that down the chair, Bev, was a personal challenge. As far as I was concerned, if I could do this quilt, then I will have become a good quilter. Okay? I am no expert, honest to God. I've seen experts' quilts. And, you know, the way I look at it is I just like the idea of taking scraps and making something beautiful, right? And the more I do, the more I do by hand, the more precious the quilt is. Okay? Because, for instance, in Bubba's quilt, some of those blocks that I have reclaimed from Arthur's quilt from his grandmother on his bio dad's side, I sewed those blocks, some of those blocks by hand. Why? Because it's precious to me. But I also have another quilt that's precious to me, and quilt blocks, and that's my friendship quilt that I have family members who've sewn on that have passed away, that have sewn on the blocks. I've got that to finish. I've got my yarn shop quilt, my own design, which will eventually hang on my dining room wall. My yarn shop quilt, or my wool shop quilt, is got to be finished. So there's Bubba's quilt, this quilt, the grandmother's flower garden quilt, the wool shop quilt, and the grandmother's flower garden quilt. These all have to be done, right? And yet I have a wedding coming up next summer that I may have to do another quilt for. So I you know, I have quilt projects, but I have to find time to sit. You need to hear it from us from sometimes. Thank you, Valentina, and thank you, Mary. I do, you know, but I try to, I want to stay humble, guys, because the moment your ego gets in the way, then life gets more complicated. Ouch, stuck that in my finger. And we're on the last one. Now, the reason I want to do one of these from start to finish is to show you how to do the last one. We know it has to go in here, but it has to start here so that I can sew all the way in one without breaking the thread. Okay? Can you guys see okay? I told Howie, this quilt is mine. This is my I have arrived quilt. It is completely going to be completely sewn by hand. And including the binding, because the binding is going to be jagged. And I told Howie to bury me with it if I ever get it done. But that's not true, because I won't get buried. I'll be cremated. And I won't let something like this be cremated with me. Why? Because if I work this many years on it, I've been working on this quilt, I'm not kidding, for 19 years. Now, it's not that it would take 19 years, but if I had every day to sit down for 3 to 4 hours every day, I could probably have this quilt done in less than a year, maybe a year. Now see how there, we're going to take our pin out. You see what I mean here? And then we're going to go along and line the bottom up with the yellow, pinning it at the juncture at the end where we're going to end, which is right, should be right there. Yep. Accepting that humbles us in a way. Hi, Corey. How are you, darling? Are you going to be there for Freaky Friday tonight? And does it need to be at 9, Corey? I need to hear that. Well, I thank you, folks. I just like your company. I don't want to be praised. I just want to share, right? And now we're going to go along here. I always back stitch one at the beginning and at the end. And I'm going to, and then sometimes in the middle. When I finish this one, I can go and continue the one I started last night. But I wanted to show you guys a fresh start. And I grabbed this fabric out of one of my dressers because I need more green in my quilt. I need more red as well. Like I look at it, and I'm a color junkie, right? I'm a color junkie. But you see how it's missing a lot of green? And there's some red, but there's, you know, I love all colors, right? Like the one in the book, someone said, the only thing I didn't like is that there was a black block. Well, guess what? There's a black block. It's black and pink, but yeah, so 8, fine. I can't wait. You're not working yet? So 8 my time, honey? So I bought this fabric and on the Akwesasne Reserve when we went down to play poker one day in Hogansburg, New York. And they have a place called the Quilt Shop. And I bought this fabric there. I bought a bunch of fat quarters because I really love. You can't see unless you really look, but those are like silver threads in there. Isn't that gorgeous? So, and then I still make mistakes because when I sewed this one on, I made the row the right length, but it should have went the other way. So I'll work on it later. Yes, okay, 8 o'clock is fine. Then that's Freaky Friday tonight. I have no idea what we're having for supper. I have taken out no meat. I might make us Westerns. I have some bacon and ham in the fridge. Oh, no, that's bologna. But I have some bacon. I'll just dice it up and fry it and fry some onions and throw in some eggs and we'll have Westerns for supper. I don't feel like, you know, making huge meals. Okay, here we go. And here we are. We've turned it to the last, so that we've pinned it, the last petal to the first petal. Some fabrics I find are so pretty. Like I'm so glad I learned how to quilt. I'm so, well, this isn't actually quilting, Diane. This isn't actually quilting. This is piecing. Quilt piecing. We're piecing blocks. Quilting is when it's all together on the frame and you start quilting the layers. Who called you a hoe? My sister's a hoe and she don't look nothing like you. Just kidding. It's an old joke about farm equipment. But I've always loved fabric. And until I started quilting, I would buy fabric just because it was pretty. So now I had a thing for gingham for a long time too. All right, here we go. And there it is. You'll see a few puckers here because this is not from the original template, and I've had to make some. But once they're ironed out, it'll be, and this is Christmas fabric. We have to have some Christmas fabric in there. So into the bag this goes. See, I have another green one over here. I haven't sewed it in yet. Oops. See how much flatter this lies? Because I had the paper pieces, right? Okay. She did mention a surgery. Yes. Linda's, is it today that Linda's husband's, Matt's having his other cataract surgery? All right, I'm going to pick this one up. This is the one I had been working on last night. Now, where did that needle go? Did I put it in the... Oh, careful. Careful with needles and leaving them in your chair. I've sat on a needle or two. Okay, this is the one I was working on last night that I didn't want to show you just the end of. So this is my needle. It is very, 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 very thin. Oh, everything's going to go well. Of course it's going to go well. Cataract surgery. Cataract surgery is pretty standard these days. It's not to say that things can't go wrong, but it's kind of like riding a bike. Once they get the swing of it, they know what they're doing. Well, without sounding too bragging, but seashell, I'm seeing the sun from my tunnel. What tunnel? Yeah, I've thrown out given away and thrown out garbage bags full of yarn and fabric because I can't do what I used to. But I'm going to try and knit Bubba a Christmas stocking this fall. So we've got that to look forward to. And I'd like to knit him a sweater or something for Christmas too. So these things I have to make, like editing, like housework, like gardening, I have to make time for things for me to do things, right? So I spent most of yesterday working on the slideshow to music for my brother's celebration of life. And there's 5 songs, and I've got 2 songs 2 songs done with pictures. And then I have 3 more to do, and then I put them all together in one long kind of slideshow that'll be played on a loop quietly in the background on a TV for anybody showing up who wants to see it. But I got to get it done soon because it's got to go to my nephew so they can make copies and stuff on memory sticks. Can you guys see okay what I'm doing here? Well, everything's coming up roses. Excellent. Well, that's true. That's true. It will be memorable. It will be. But also, they say nothing digital ever dies. And I hope my videos will be on the internet for years to come. Because that way, when I go, my family and my grandkids and stuff like that can always, find me. You know what I mean? They can find me. Tweedlet, Tweedle-dee, tweedle-dee. It's getting there. Oh, you should see some of the lights. Some of the chandelier ceiling lights he's got. They're beautiful. Good taste, Corey. Although I'd look at that and go, that's just too much dusting for me. Don't disturb my dust. Then I gotta clean. Oh, itch. I have one spot on my scalp that's always itchy. Okay. One more stitch in here and then we'll turn. We'll put the final one in. Bev, be careful where you put your needle. I'm going to have to rethread that. Make time for, yeah. So, maybe someday, Bubba will be able to look back and go, wow, there's Granny making my sweater when I was like 2. You know what I mean? There we go. I need to rethread this needle. It needs fresh thread. I wish I had brought out a candle or something so that I could run the... Oh, there's one sitting across from me on the piano. Oh. Okay. There we go. And again, I made a really long thread. So instead of starting it here, we're starting it on the edge again. So we can go here, here, and then there and be done on the last one. Last one's always my favorite. I have a quilt my great-grandfather made. I love running my hands over it, knowing she did every stitch. Yeah, my quilt on my bed, my Aunt Jane made for me. Now, you can't see what Aunt Jane made because it was a wedding gift for Howie and I. And I've tried to keep that tradition going. But it was a wedding quilt for Howie and I that my Aunt Jane made. And she asked me when I saw her about, a year after the wedding, she said, how do you like your quilt? I said, oh, I don't use it. And she said, what? And I said, no, Aunt Jane, it's put away. It's in a Ziploc plastic bag in a cupboard. And she said, Beth, I made that quilt for your bed, not to be hidden in the dark. Let it be, let it be used. Let it be loved. Right? And so I did. That quilt has now been recovered twice. And right now it recently had the last backing on the last recovery, which has to be actually mended, was the top sheet of a $220 American set of sheets I bought in Cairo, Egypt. Egyptian cotton sheets. And so that's the backing on that quilt. Every layer has its own story, eh? But I know that that quilt has been well loved and Aunt Jane is pleased. Why? Because you may not be able to see her handiwork in it, but it's there and it keeps me warm every night, winter or summer. It's got to be on my bed. Hi, we just got home about 15 minutes ago from Matt's left eye surgery. It went okay today. Had to take out the IV and move it. The person did something wrong and meds wouldn't pass through. That happens. Bev, can you make me a quilt? Honey, if I had a nickel, I would love to, Corey. I really would. If I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me if I could make them a quilt, I'd be a rich woman. Well, I am rich, but just not in money. But Corey, hear me, okay? When my wool shop quilt is finished, when my friendship quilt is finished, When this quilt is finished, when my grandmother's flower garden quilt is finished, when I have finished repairing Arthur and Briar's quilts, and I've made Bubba's quilt, ask me again. No, see, Corey, you don't send your clothes. You know, it all depends. The fabric has to be there's requirements for the fabric. They have to be no less than 60% cotton. They cannot be stretchy or shiny, like, you know, satin and silks and stuff like that. No. But if you want, why don't you make one, Corey? Why don't you make one? Make one. Get some of your grandmothers and your mothers and your aunties and your grandpa and your mom and your dad and your sister. Get articles like, you know, house dresses and dress shirts and from them, and add something of your own in it, and then make a quilt of your family around you. But you start collecting up those fabrics. Now, I would probably add fabrics to it just to make it work. But if you start collecting stuff like that, Corey, we'll talk, okay? Dress shirt of your granddad or your dad's or your grandpa's, a house dress of your grandmother's, your great-grandmother's, your mother's, blouse of your sister's, whatever. But they got to be at least 60% cotton, no knits, and no shiny fabrics, okay? And then we'll talk. I'm glad it went well, honey. Tell Matt we'll see him at Free. I guess he won't be on Freaky Friday tonight, will he? Will he be listening? And there we go. There we go. So, I'm actually going to see if I can't. See, sometimes I got blocks. You know, I would buy little things like this off the internet, right? And they would come in all the same colors, but different patterns. Now let's see if I can get 6 out of this. How would I do that? That's 4. That would make it 8. Let's see. There's creative ways of making fabric cuts. Let's just see if I can do it. Hey, Pauletta, Charlene, how's it going? Will this work? No, that won't. So, maybe it'll work this way. That would be seriously cutting it close. I don't know. That would be seriously cutting it close. I would have to go back in my drawer and see if I can find another one of these. Yeah, I'll leave that. I should be ironing those pieces anyway. Bev, don't just drop your sewing needle. Because the other ones have heads on them. I saw a seamstress on YouTube making a t-shirt quilt for a widow out of her husband's t-shirts. That can be done. Briar's quilt, I don't know if you can, where is it? Can you see that folded quilt right there with the pink and ends and stuff? That's a t-shirt quilt. That is a quilt of t-shirt blocks that were sent to me by Devonna Smith. Because she has a t-shirt company. One of her companies is t-shirts. And she, this is another one I made. And she sent me a box full. So I just used it to recover one of Briar's quilts. Let's see. There's you. Let's have a look and see what we got in here. I'm not going to cut any more right now. What have we got going on in here? Oh, this one looks like it would work. And here's more. Oh, yeah, let's do that one. You'd go for what, Corey? I don't know if you guys there. This fabric was given to me by the lady who gave me my very first rolling quilt frame. I sold it at the local garage sale. Okay, let's just so I don't screw the. Ooh, look at you. Ooh, I'll put you in there. You may go with the purple. She gave me all these scraps that she had used to make a quilt, but there was tons of pieces like this. And I said, oh yeah, I'll take them. She retired from quilting. One, there's two. One, two. Oh, you guys can't see what I'm doing, can you? And then three. Haste makes waste. So there is 6. These are my scissors nobody gets to touch but me. They are fabric scissors and fabric scissors alone. You'd go for what, Corey? Oh, I can hear the gray tree frogs. I didn't hear a lot of them last year, but they're hanging out in the pool. That Howie hasn't, like Howie's under a lot of pressure to get stuff done, right? And he was feeling that last night. And I said, honey, I said, have I complained that there's no liner or water in the pool? And he said, no. I said, well, then don't worry about it. There's more important things first. And one of them is getting the roof done, which is almost done, by the way, folks. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing here. Sorry, Bev, but you may have already discussed this, but I was wondering how you go about your pattern. What do you mean by that, honey? Can you be a little more specific? Like, how do I go about choosing the pattern? Or sometimes patterns, like my nephew Andrew's quilt and Mikey's quilt, they are just plain. They're like 9-piece, or actually, I don't even know if they're 9-piece blocks. Okay, this will be put back for another round. And we're going to put you. You see the difference in fabric? This is feed sack fabric here. This is a heavier duty fabric. For doing the quilt, I'm new to it, so I'm a beginner. Ooh, I just dropped a pin. Hang on. Start with squares, sweetheart. Start with squares. That's what I did. I used a square piece of cardboard, and then I cut my squares out, but I drew sewing lines on them. Okay? And I gave myself a 1/4-inch seam allowance. There's no lines on these because this is what I'm doing. This is something I've been at for a long time. But you sew the squares together and then you sew them in strips and then you sew the strips together. It's like Freaky Geek says. I have a lot of videos. Just go on Our Half Acre Homestead. Just Google Our Half Acre Homestead quilt. Okay? You'll see the simple quilt I made for Brother John out in Ohio. You'll see simple 9 patchworks. You'll see baby quilts. You'll see the quilts I made for my nephews and all kinds of stuff. Okay? And it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do it, especially with a sewing machine. This, what I'm doing right here, is just my quiet time. Right? But you gotta start simple. Right? I started really simple. The very, very first quilt I ever made, nobody told me how to do it. And Arthur's, you got an itch, Greasy? My Aunt Toots sent me a swivel rocker when I first moved into my second place apartment. It was a townhouse. And she sent me a swivel rocker. My cousin brought it up on the back of her truck. Hang on a second. I got a thread realignment here. My, God, you guys can't even see what I'm doing, can you? Sorry. My cousin brought it up on the back of her truck, wrapped in this tattered old, comforter. And my cousin said, Mom said you can just throw that comforter out. Well, I was a single mom on social assistance who had a $45 budget a month for entertainment. And what I did with that was I bought myself a TV and a VCR on time. And that left me enough money each month to rent videos from Video on Wheels and a pizza once a month. That was my entertainment. But so I everything I did, was on a budget. Absolutely everything I did was on a budget. And I had my brother and his wife's washer and dryer in my townhouse because they were living at my sister's house for a while they looked for a place to live. And so I got to use their washer and dryer, which was a real luxury because I only had a twin tub spin washer and a little apartment size dryer. So I said, no, I'm not going to throw that out. I'm gonna wash it and use it. Well, the bloody thing was so threadbare, like the fabric on the comforter was so threadbare that it just fell apart. So what I did was I took all of Arthur's and some of his cousin Bronwyn's receiving blankets, and I recovered. It was so bad I couldn't sew anything to it because it was so worn thin, the fabric. So what I did was I took a mattress cover that I had, like a cotton mattress cover that you would put over a mattress, and it zippered on, and I actually slid the comforter inside the mattress cover, split the side seams so that it fit. And then I just started cutting. I used one of his storybooks and I cut big squares and I just started sewing them right to the mattress cover. And when that was all done, I just put yarn, tied it with yarn to make sure all the layers were stuck together. Arthur had that quilt. I finished it before he turned 2, just before he turned 2. And he had that quilt till he was 15. At 14, he went to live with his bio dad in New Brunswick. And It was small, guys. It was not quite, it wasn't a crib quilt, but it wasn't a twin either. It was kind of in between. And he was, by then, by 14, he was over 5 foot. And he was sleeping with the quilt diagonally so that the corner was at one corner was at his feet and the other corner was at his chin, so that he could cover himself with the whole um with the whole hey Buck, how's it going? He could cover himself with the whole quilt, but it was in such horrific shape. And I couldn't recover it again because it was so thick, like Howie's, right? Like Howie's was, that I've stolen from him and given him another one. So he left it behind, and I thought he didn't want it anymore. So after he left, he at the end of the school year, he asked me, he emailed me or phoned me and said, "Could you send me my quilt?" I said, "I'm sorry, honey, I threw it out." And he went, "What?" Right? Because I had thrown it out. But not before I had taken as much of blocks or pieces of blocks as I could recover from that quilt, as much fabric as I could. And I made him a new quilt. And I put those old blocks, or those old pieces, I made them into new blocks like I'm doing for Bubba's quilt. And I made him a new quilt. Now, oh, the temperature's dropping. Oh, here comes some rain. When he came home, his first Christmas he spent in New Brunswick, because I told him, I said, "You've never had Christmas with anybody else. So, have Christmas at your dad's the first year." And I worked on his quilt. Now, he said he thought it was, he had this whole long story about how Christmas is different. He said he'd never seen a tree that was only like done in gold and white. He said, "I like colored lights and, colored ornaments and handmade ornaments when we were kids and stuff." He said, and then I guess his dad bought him a video camera, and then he made him open it first so he could film the rest of his brothers and sisters and stuff opening their gifts. But also, I guess Donnie had gone Christmas shopping, and then he picked Arthur up at school, and Donnie's worse than a kid himself. He said, "Check those bags back there and make sure those are the video games I was supposed to get for you." So Arthur said, "I remember, Mom." He said, "I remember." He said, "Even socks." He said, "I remember once you rolled up socks and put them in a cardboard, put all the socks and rolled them up, put them in a cardboard tube and wrapped it." He said, "I had no idea what was in that. It was only socks." But the excitement of not knowing what was in that oddly shaped package, he said, "You went to great lengths to disguise gifts, right?" He said, "I've never, So when he came home for Christmas the next year, his quilt was done, and he opened it, and he looked at it, and he found, let's do this. I don't know if this is going to let me. He found the 3 or 4 blocks that I had made from the recovered fabric from his quilt that I made him when he was 2. And he went like this. He looked the whole quilt over, and he found them, and he went like this. That's when you know. The sad part is that quilt. Oh, come on, do this for me, will you? That quilt got lost. Arthur thinks it was stolen. So Bubba's not getting his for a very long time until he's much older. But And that's, and it's really hard when you go through something like that and you find out that, it was stolen. You know what I mean? But hey Mary, how's Oklahoma today? So I also made him a hat once because Arthur's spirit totem is the owl. And I made him a quilt, or not a quilt. I knitted him a hat. And I have not been able to find the proper pattern since. But I made him a hat that was a toque, a knitted toque, that around the rim, around the edge, just above the garter stitch band, just above that, using a cable stitch, I made him owls out of cable stitches all around. And then I took antique, remember snaps, little snaps? You'd sew them on at the top of a dress or whatever, and they'd snap together. I had some antique black snaps from one of my many gifts for my Aunt Jane and my cousin Marilyn, who sent me, who gave me a lot of my Aunt Jane's old sewing and quilting stuff. And I sewed those snaps into the eyes of the owls so that it actually looked like a gray toque ringed with horned owls. That also got stolen. So when it comes to making things for people that are going to be precious to them, then please, 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 make sure that, you give it to them when they're going to, I don't know. It breaks your heart when you put so much work into something. And I don't think I could knit that hat again. I honestly don't think I could. As a matter of fact, I don't have the pattern. I tried, but it wasn't going to be the same. Because I never follow a proper pattern. I make my own. So we'll see. Let's get this. Anyway, folks, depending on the weather, maybe tomorrow I will sit down and do some work on the grandmother's flower garden quilt, which is, oh goodness, which is, you can see the strips right there that I've been working on. I want to say thank you for keeping me company while I stitch. And it's time to put on Downton Abbey and do some more sewing and relaxing, because God only knows what the weekend is going to bring. But I got some weeding done today, and I got some laundry done. I got my dishes done. So I'm going to relax until Freaky Friday tonight. I have a brand new great-granddaughter, 8 pounds, 1 ounce, 20 inches long. Wow. Upper. Lots of dark brown hair, born. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Congratulations. I'm fortunate enough to have a grandchild who says, "Hi, Ganny." You want your heart to swell out of your chest? Have your first grandchild say, "Hi, Ganny," with a big grin. It is a moment of absolute, pure, unadulterated joy. I love you guys. Take care. God bless. Patrons. Now, Seashell put it up there, but what Patreon is Patreon is you get 3 unlisted live streams a week with me, either here, usually in my office, but one, and then we just talk. We talk about upcoming stuff and what's coming up and personal things, right? But on Fridays, and everyone says the $5 a month American or $750 a month Canadian is worth it for Freaky Friday alone. Sometimes it's Sassy Saturday, but 9 times out of 10, Freaky Friday is on at 8 o'clock Friday nights. And that's where we put on music. Some people have a cocktail. Some people have a hot cocoa. Some people smoke a joint. Some people, just want to be with us. and we put on music and we put on the disco lights and we just shed any negativity from the week. We have a blast. And it goes on for about an hour to an hour and a half. It's gone close to 2 hours at times, but that's our Freaky Friday. So, patrons, I will see you tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for Freaky Friday. And Seashell has put the link up to Patreon if you want to join and see what all the fun is about. All right? Take care. God bless. I love you guys. Patrons, I'll see you tonight at 8. Mwah.